Hello and welcome to my full card recap from Cage Warriors 152 in Manchester that took place last Saturday. As I mentioned in my kind of travel recap video, it's the first time I've been to a Cage Warriors live event in a long time. I think 2019 was the last one I went to. Purely just because the events tend to be up north now, whereas they used to be closer to home. But I still made the trip up. So I'm going to talk through the card and I'll put some clips in and stuff. If you want to check out all of the coverage that I did for the event, go to VMTV's YouTube channel for all the post-fight interviews. We'll be doing a podcast recapping it as well, or the VMTV website for the articles that I wrote when I eventually made it back to my Airbnb where I had Wi-Fi again, which was very nice. So the card started off with a split decision for Orlando Wilson Prinz. I remember being quite confident that Orlando had got the job done. I believe that was the one where the judges scored it 30-27 for either guy, which was quite strange. But yeah, solid performance from him. Next up, you have the first next generation guy on the card, Liam Gittins, who is always in bangers. This was a classic Liam Gittins fight against Rory Evans. Just relentless pace and pressure. And he eventually got the finish in the second round with some devastating knees. I remember everyone in the meeting room kind of felt like maybe he landed a few too many knees before the stoppage came. But Liam afterwards told us that he thought it was absolutely fine. And Rory did a good job trying to stay in there, but yeah, good stoppage for Liam, and obviously a great start for the next generation MMA guys who heavily featured throughout this card. Next up, you had Mikhail Falk defeating Chris Price. I didn't get to see a whole lot of this one because we were chatting to Liam during it, which always happens with Cage Warriors. The fights go so fast, which is great if you're sat at home watching the fights, and it can be a bit of a problem if you're there covering the events because you end up missing a lot of the fights, but that's absolutely fine, of course. So I didn't get to see a lot of this, but he looked pretty dominant from what I saw. I didn't get the opportunity to talk to Mikhail. I could be saying that wrong, so I do apologise. But yeah, it looked like a solid performance to me. Then you had one of the, I was going to say most anticipated, but I think as Brad Wharton said, a little bit of a sleeper, this between Chris Bungard and Gavin Hughes. A rematch 7 years on from their first meeting where Gavin Hughes submitted Chris by a guillotine in the first round. But some bad blood between these guys. They showed that at the weigh-ins. I think that kind of got the fight the hype that it kind of deserved. Not necessarily a huge fight in terms of where either guy goes in the rankings, but a bit of a grudge match that has been building for a long time, obviously. And it was a great fight. The fight of the night so far. It would be topped later on, I can assure you, but it was a great fight still. Obviously, you had that controversy with Gavin Hughes landing that elbow right at the end of the first round. And when I say right at the end of the first round, I mean right at the end of the first round. But Chris did an excellent job coming back into it. I think he took the second and third rounds. He won a split decision in the end, but I think it was quite clear that he won the second and third. Gavin Hughes took time to speak to the media afterwards, which fair play to him, he didn't have to do. Chris was fantastic on the mic. I don't think I got the chance to speak to him, but check out the clips because he was on fine form and kind of revealed that he kind of did play up to the elbow a little bit because he thought that it was after the bell and that he might he might win the round because of it. But they determined that the elbow was perfectly legal, and then he was like, well, I probably lost the round because of that. So yeah, it was great honesty, and yeah, great chat with Chris. Next up, you had Ewan Davis. Again, didn't get to watch the majority of this fight, but I saw the finish. It looked very dominant. He's a really good prospect, Ewan, and excited to see where he goes next in Cage Warriors. Then you had Madars Flaminas taking on Alexei Mantakivi. Madars got the win on his birthday. It was quite a close fight, I thought, but again, you're watching through a monitor, you get to watch parts here and there, so maybe it looked a little bit closer than it actually was to us watching it in small little bits. But Madar seemed completely confident that he'd got the win, and he did. And yeah, really big win for him. His interview was very interesting. I'll show you the clip now. First of all, congrats on the performance, but also happy birthday.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah.
How does it feel to get the birthday win?
It's not that much about birthday. I mean, it was for me, the most mean because my son come to the fight for a long time again, and I just wanna show him he's nothing to worry about it. I always take care what need to be take care, you know.
How old's your son?
9-year-old.
Is this the first one he's been to?
Now he's been on George Hardwick fight, but then he was little, so he was listening to music while he was watching me fighting. But now he's a lot involved in my fight camps as well, traveling a lot around to the country to train with me. So he's a lot involved. He was crying before the fight, so just want to show him that is good.
But yeah, as I said, great win for him, and Manskivi is a very tough guy to beat. So yeah, congratulations. Then you had the main card. Things got reshuffled quite a bit. Because on the day you had Josh Reed versus Liam Malloy. That fight fell off earlier in the day, and you had Andrew Clamp pulling out of his fight that was supposed to be on the main card during the broadcast. They found out about that. We didn't find out about it until way later because none of us had Wi-Fi, so we didn't actually know. But because of that, you had Luke Riley opening up the main card, which I think should have been the move anyway. Taking on Callum Parker, who stepped in on late notice, another British guy, but he trains out of America at Alliance. Big one for Next Gen, and maybe the best fight I've ever seen live. I'd have to think about that. But I don't know, I've seen some bangers in Cage Warriors over the years. Ross Houston versus Nicholas Dalby. That was a good one. James Webb versus Matthias Frederick. The first one where it was a draw. Yeah. Anyway, definitely the best round I've ever seen live. That opening round, Callum Parker came out, dropped Luke Riley, I think 2 or 3 times. Luke Riley has got a crazy chin on him. He reminds me of Paddy in that way. Like he will eat a clean shot and then just get up and throw back immediately. You had Paddy sat cage side, who we spoke to him a little bit later on in the night, and I said to him, "You would have been in that cage if you hadn't had his leg in a boot and stuff." And obviously he agreed. But what a fight! I was going to say what a performance from Luke Riley, and what I mean by that is we saw him get tested, we saw his chin get tested, we saw his heart get tested, and he came back after a tough first round and won the fight. With some incredible pace, cardio. His boxing looked really sharp, but he did get caught a lot, and he was really unhappy with himself actually when he came back into the media room right after. He was rating his performance 2 out of 10. Was really annoyed at himself for not throwing kicks, for not staying disciplined, for getting into a firefight. But he also, because of that first round, he said he couldn't really remember a lot of that fight. So kind of over the course of talking to us and us saying about what a great fight it was, he was like, well, I proved that even on a bad performance like that, I've still managed to get my hand raised, and I've learned some vital lessons about staying disciplined and staying focused, and also proved that I can win a fight on autopilot. So I think it was a valuable fight for Luke Riley. Not necessarily his best performance, definitely not his best performance, but a very valuable one for the longevity of his career.
Luke, from the moment you walked in here, you were a bit disappointed. Seems like the more you've spoken about it, the lessons you can learn from it, you're a little bit happier with yourself. I mean, it was a gutsy performance at the very least.
A win's a win, obviously, but getting to out like that, it's not what you want, is it, this early in your career? So obviously I knew Callum was, people had messages all week, I'm going to do him in the first round, but I knew he's out there training with likes of Dominic Cruz in America. He's not going to take a fight on a week's notice with me if he's just going to come here and think he's going to get starched out in the round. So deep down I knew it was going to be a good little dog fight. So fair play to Callum and respect.
It's been a feature of your career with getting late notice replacements, having difficulty finding opponents in the first place. Like I said, you've kind of come around to the idea that you have to learn these lessons at some point. It's probably better to learn them now when you're so early on in your career.
Maybe that is the case of learning fights like that this early on in the career. Like I said, that to me is honestly like a loss. So I've took that. Obviously, I've got still a win, but my mindset is like back to the drawing board now, round off the game, and like just come in. Yeah.
Next up, you had Adam Cullen versus Dumitru Golan. Could get that wrong. This was a tough one. It was a tough loss for Adam, who was finished right at the start of the third round after some close rounds of grappling. I think on watching the fight back this morning, I think probably Dimitri took. They were close, but and then he got stopped right at the end, right at the start rather of the third round. It was tough that we were chatting to Luke at the time, so we were all able to watch the thing, but then obviously we had to get Luke's reaction to it, and as soon as we got done speaking to Luke, he went over and spent time with Adam and made sure he was okay, who was in a bit of a bad way. Obviously people saw on the broadcast he was getting air and stuff like that right after the knockout. But the big question with Adam has been what happens if he gets out the first round, because none of his opponents have managed to do it yet. Dimitri was able to do that, and he will have learnt more from this fight than all of his 6 fights previous, I imagine. So I expect him to come back. I don't think this loss hurts his stock too much. And exciting for Dimitri, you know. I got to speak to him after, and man of many words, but big win for him, for sure.
Questa è la mia prima apparizione in questa promotion e dopo questa vittoria spero che più presto di fare un altro match e di dimostrare ancora quanto valgo, specialmente dopo questa performance contro l'atleta di casa.
This was my first appearance and I hope there will be much more, and in order to show how good I am in the sport, especially after this win with the local fighter.
Next up, you had James Power taking on Lucas Capera. I was super high on James Power. I got the chance to speak to him a couple of weeks out before the fight, and I was really impressed with his Cage Warriors debut against Shelley, and tipping him for big things. Big step up as well. Clearly, Cage Warriors also see him as a potential title challenger and stuff, taking on a guy who's way more experienced than him in Lucas Capera, but a fantastic display. Obviously the fight ended up getting stopped in between the second and third round. It was a bit confusing what was going on, but it looked like he just didn't want to. I don't actually know what happened still. I think he just didn't answer the call for the third round. I don't think it was a referee stoppage. I know he had that really, really bad cut, but they seemed to do a pretty good job in between rounds of stopping it from bleeding too much. It was absolutely flowing, though, when it opened up. Fantastic performance from James. I really think that he will go on to challenge for the Cage Warriors title, and I think he could go on to be one of these guys that ascends right to the top of the card. In the co-main event of the evening, you had Nathan Fletcher taking on Dan Dice. What a performance from Nathan Fletcher, taking this fight on late notice. Of course, Dan was supposed to be fighting Reece McEwen, another top bantamweight in Cage Warriors. But Nathan got the call, stepped in on late notice, and submitted Dan with his own signature move, the triangle choke, which he was absolutely buzzing about backstage. He spoke about a fight with Reece McEwen, or potentially the winner of the upcoming title fight in Rome. So I will play you that clip right now.
It feels like with this win, you've put yourself into a position where people can't really run. You've got Reece McEwen, who's also trying to get towards that title shot, so that makes a lot of sense. Or the winner/loser of the title fight.
Yeah.
Is there any chance you're going to be in Rome?
I'm going to Italy next week, but I think I fly back on like the 1st of May, so
I just missed it.
If Cage Warriors want to give me a cage side ticket, I will happily book another flight to Rome on the 5th and go out and watch that and sit cage side. That would be good, I think. A bit of promotion for that there, because I'm definitely next in line now. I've cemented myself there with that win tonight. But then again, saying that, we'll see what's next. I feel like I've opened a lot of doors now, so it might not necessarily be the title shot. There could be other things on the horizon for me. I'm just going to continue doing what I'm doing, putting in work and improving and schooling everyone and proving that I'm the best.
And yeah, as the final next-gen fighter on the card, Nathan Fletcher really capped it off in style. Pretty flawless performance. I'm sure he'll have some little things here and there. One of the things he did tell us after the fight was that when he had the arm triangle choke earlier on in the fight, that a lot of us thought was going to be the end of it. Did I say arm triangle? I meant head and arm. He said that Dan made noises as if he couldn't breathe. It's kind of tempting Nathan Fletcher to really squeeze and try and get that submission, but in reality Dan was fine. So if that's true, an absolute veteran move that I can't say I've heard many fighters pull off, but fair play to Nathan Fletcher. He didn't buy it, and he ended up switching and getting the triangle choke. And then in the main event, the Cage Warriors Lightweight Championship, George Hardwick defeating Jan Lias to defend his title in the first round. A lot of the talk that we had going into this fight was if George was able to come out of this fight unscathed, July in London, that UFC call-up could definitely be a big possibility. You don't get many fighters who can defend the Cage Warriors title twice and stay in the promotion. I didn't think it was going to be doable. I thought that George would get his hand raised, but I thought this was going to go late, just from the few clips that I'd seen from Jan and his fighting style. But George looked fantastic. The statement win of his Cage Warriors career so far, because Jan is a top European prospect, and he took him out and made it look quite easy. As soon as he landed that first big right hand, I think it was a right hand, it was over. He just swarmed him, got the job done. He got a hero's welcome in Manchester as well, which I know a lot of the people who bought a ticket for that event would have been to see the next gen guys, but it was fantastic to see George get an absolutely incredible reception and finish it in style. Tell Dana White that he wants to get him a chicken parmo. Signed, sealed, delivered. I think we're going to see George Hardwick on that UFC London. George Hardwick, I don't understand why his nickname isn't Heartbreaker. He walks out to Heartbreaker, he finishes people with body shots. George Heartbreaker Hardwick. I'm saying it. I've been tweeting it this whole time, and I think it should be a thing. And what a character he is. I mean, him and Harry backstage were just fantastic, of course.
You mentioned when you first came in here about kind of feeling like you might lose this if you weren't able to get a decision, and kind of not being too worried or nervous about the fight. Was that different to other fights?
It was all quite surreal, and it's even more surreal now that the fight's finished. I honestly thought his long southpaw game was going to shut down the cross counter. It's going to shut down the liver shot. It's going to shut down the calf kick. I'm like scratching my head. What do I have to do? So it was just finding the different weapons. I've been studying different fighters, adding different tools in, and stuff that I've just been working in the bag and not shown, working in sparring that I've not shown. It's come out in that fight.
Enjoy your air pollution palmo, mate.
Ooh,
I know
yes.
they do 'em special.
A hot shot air pollution palmo.
Nice one, mate.
With curry sauce. Who's the guy asking me about curry sauce? I'm actually going to try a palmo with curry sauce. I've not done it before, but...
He's spamming both of our everything.
What?
He's spamming both of our
Yeah.
everything.
Curry sauce, man. I'm coming for you.
And that was all it. Big event for Cage Warriors. They have a really big set of few weeks. Obviously, they've got that Ireland card coming up with Reece McKee and Jimmy Warled that I cannot wait for, and then off to Rome as well. So fantastic stuff from Cage Warriors. Thank you for checking out this full recap of the card. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, and I'll catch you on the next one. All that good stuff. See you later.